When I was a kid, Mama Jack would buy me one game for my birthday and maybe one game for Christmas, and most of the time, there were clear winners of my attention. As a Nintendo kid, Legend of Zelda was my favorite series growing up, but I also liked playing Super Smash Bros. And going over to my friend's house to play Resident Evil. But back then, even though there was a noticeable competition for my attention, games were smaller, more easily completed. Technology wouldn't allow for a game to have 50 hours of a campaign and 188 hours of side quests like Breath of the Wild does, so when I played Ocarina of Time and Super Mario 64 simultaneously, it wasn't completely life-consuming. Those games could be beaten within a reasonable amount of time, and then I would move on to the next game. I feel like this started to change once I got into my early teens and I started playing online games. Or maybe I just started to notice it more. In 2007, I got into World of Warcraft, and around the same time was when Call of Duty and Halo's online play was getting extremely popular. Call of Duty just released Modern Warfare, and Halo 3 was everyone's crack at the time, so between these three big games and a guilty pleasure of playing Guitar Hero, my game time started to have some serious competition. But even at that time, games still had a relative end. They shipped with all of their content and maybe had a few DLC packs to add small things like new maps or guns or whatever, but I feel like this evolved into what we have today. World of Warcraft and every other MMO created since then takes years of your life with no real end to the game, since they are basically second worlds that you live in. Online competitive multiplayer games are either annual cash cows like every new Call of Duty and Battlefield, or they're live service games that constantly get new updates to make the original game fresh every so often. Think Fortnite or League of Legends. Single player or co-op games ship with what feels like months of gameplay, with everything needing to have an open world, some crafting or survival element, or a grand story to try and tie things into a cohesive experience. Think The Witcher or Cyberpunk, Last of Us 2, Elden Ring, or any of the Assassin's Creeds. So as society's attention span getting smaller and smaller, we are also getting more and more video games to play. Not to mention that there are more publishers in the video game space than ever before, with indie games that are rivaling the quality of some of the biggest names in the business. It's a weird place to be in, right? Because what are you going to do? Complain that there is just too much opportunity to have fun? That's exactly what I'm doing. No, but really, the whole reason I'm making this video is because I actually feel guilty for not being happy that there are too many games to choose from. And this is a personal problem, of course, which is not on anyone else to fix, but I do think it affects the gaming industry more than we think. While we should be grateful to have so many options to choose from, so many good games to buy and try and get lost in, I personally end up falling into a death by 1,000 choices state of mind. So much so that sometimes I just choose not to play anything at all. This is called the paradox of choice, or the overwhelming of the mind by giving it too many potentially good options to choose from. I do acknowledge that this is a privileged problem to have, so please don't think that I'm comparing this to other problems that are very real in the world. I just like to analyze the psychology behind this and see how it affects us as gamers. I think it's interesting to think that we're at this point in the gaming industry where a person's time and attention is constantly in competition. I've said it before in my reviews that the most valuable resource a person has is time. Everything that you could possibly think of takes time. It could take a second or years, but it takes something. And time is one of the few resources that you can't get back. Until we discover time travel and anti-aging and all that sci-fi shit, we are stuck with a finite amount of time. So when someone dedicates their time to any activity, they are making a conscious decision that they can't go back on. If you choose to go to your job because you need to maintain that job to make money, you can't go back on that. It's probably a good idea to go to work, but you can't say, oh, I no longer want to have spent the last 8 hours of my day sitting at this desk. I would like to reclaim this time and spend it again, only this time I want to spend it at the beach with my friends or family. No, you can't do that. Time is finite, and once spent, you can't get it back. So all this existential dread talk is really to get to my point that when I get off work every day and have about 7 hours before I need to go to bed, I need to seriously think about what I'm doing with each of these hours. There's general life things like cooking, eating, dogs and a girlfriend, working out, doing house projects, running errands, and getting some sun. On average, I would say I have about 2.5 hours a day that I can spend on hobbies like editing for YouTube and playing video games. Some days I have more than 2 hours because I'm young and can choose to spend like 5 hours playing games, but some days I don't play at all. For some of the games being released today, it would take me a long time to complete all the content they have to offer. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild takes about 50 hours to complete, and that's if you're focusing on the main objectives. Apparently, according to this Google search, if you did everything the game had in it, all the side quests and shrines and all that, it would take about 188 hours. I have on average 2 hours a day, which means 25 days to complete the main objectives, and about 3 months to finish everything else. If I dedicated every day to playing Breath of the Wild, it would take me 3 months to finish that one game, to see everything that the devs intended for me to see. That's one game. Let me introduce you to the list of games that I'm trying to play right now. First, Elden Ring, the most hyped game of all time and one of the few that actually meet the expectations of that hype. As a Souls game, it frustrates me to no end, and sometimes I wonder why I'm even playing it, but then I stay awake at night planning my next exploration route. Second is Last Epoch, an ARPG that I just reviewed where I'm having a great time leveling my second character to see how melee classes play. Then there's Path of Exile, which used to get more of my attention, but is currently being beat out by the next game I'm reviewing, which, spoiler alert, is Diablo 3. For MMOs, there's Final Fantasy XIV, Albion Online, World of Warcraft, both retail and classic, and sometimes Lost Ark. I happen to also enjoy indie games, so I play a lot of The Binding of Isaac, RimWorld, and Hero Siege. I like narrative-driven single-player games, so I've been playing Pokemon Legends Arceus, Bug Fables, which is basically like Paper Mario, but not, and I've gone back and been trying to complete more of Super Mario Odyssey. Then when my friends are online, I also play Smite, Rocket League, and Valheim. I am also constantly playing Hearthstone Battlegrounds on my phone and Vampire Survivors while I'm trying to multitask at work. That's a lot of games. But the problem isn't necessarily that I'm having fun with all of these games, but more so that it puts me into a state of mind where I'm hyper aware of what game I'm spending my time on. Should I put all of my time into Elden Ring so I can finally beat it and find out what happens? Or do I try and keep up with the never-ending progression system of World of Warcraft? Should I try to get further into Path of Exile's endgame, or try and beat Breath of the Wild for the 30th time? Should I play Valheim with my friends or hide from them and try to catch them all in Pokemon Arceus? I want to do it all, but I only have so much time, and more games are coming out soon that I'll have to try out too. But enough about my problems. What does this mean for the gaming industry? Two things have become super important in today's gaming market. First, I feel like game reviews are more important now than ever before. If I can go on YouTube and be told in 10 minutes that Elden Ring is the best game that ever graced the earth with its presence, then I am more inclined to spend my time trying out that game. Likewise, if there are hundreds of videos telling me that Call of Duty is at its lowest point in the franchise's history, I'm not going to waste my time on it. But game critics need to understand that they have a responsibility to be honest and provide quality reviews, because they are becoming the proxy for spending $60 and 40 hours figuring out if a game is good or not. Unfortunately for game critics, it's also a pretty volatile position to be in, because people don't like to be sold your opinion. They like to be persuaded, which you may think is the same thing, but the difference is in how the listener is perceiving what they are being told. So if you don't give your opinion with honesty and integrity, the internet will let you know. Second, the first 2 to 4 hours of your game's experience is now probably the most important part of your game. If I have 30 other games to choose from and 2 hours to try yours, you better catch my attention and hook me within those 2 hours. If you think that I should be spending 20 hours of my time to get to the good part, you must be out of your mind. I'll go play another game that catches my attention up front. And I know that I'm not alone in this. I feel like this is a big part of why League of Legends originally became so popular. Of course, there are a lot of reasons, but one of them is because they probably have the fastest load time to gameplay that you've ever seen. For new players, they can get into a game with 2 clicks. They experience the tutorial once and immediately get into the main gameplay loop. The same could be said for Breath of the Wild, The Binding of Isaac, or Minecraft even. These are games that get you right into the action, whether they have simple or hugely complex gameplay loops. A new player can make up their mind within 1 or 2 hours of playing the game. Now obviously not everyone is like this, but I definitely am. I took a look back at the games that I've enjoyed over the years, and the ones that kept me are the ones that caught my attention up front. It doesn't matter if the game was a 1,000-hour MMO or a 20-hour indie game. There was something that redeemed the game within my first game session that kept me around for more sessions after that. I know I didn't give a real solution to handling the paradox of choice because I honestly don't have one. I would suggest you take the time to enjoy whatever it is that you spend your time on. Don't worry about the quantity of your time, just worry about the quality. But what do you think? How long do you play a game before you make up your mind on it? Did you enjoy listening to me rant? I hope you did. Like the video if you liked it and subscribe for more content. I hope you find a way to balance your game time, and I can't wait to see what we talk about next.